everybody. Today we have a global marketing leader from a fast-paced tech environment. I would give it to you, Liia, because I feel like you have had a really good journey with a startup called Bolt. Many of us who live in Estonia and even outside know about it. Right into your journey with Bolt and how you started off, and then go back to your journey as well in your 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi everyone. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me. Easy journey. It's been an amazing journey and it's been a lot of fun.
Wow.
So when it comes to my role there, I was mainly responsible for everything that had to do with marketing within the food delivery space. So when I started off, I joined Bolt just a couple of months before we launched food delivery in Estonia, which was our first market.
Okay.
Which means that essentially I had a chance of participating in building up the food delivery platform from zero to 20 plus countries and so many cities across Europe and Africa. It's been amazing. It's been also crazy, as every startup is. I mean, there's ups and downs. There's a massive scaling growth. And well, I loved every day there.
Amazing. Plus, we say in like the startup world, when you work there for, let's say, 2 years, 3 years, it's equal to at least 6 to 8 years in a traditional environment, because the
This
pace
is true.
and the learning and the challenges is on another level. So I feel like, considering your, let's say, the first market that you started Bolt in, that was Estonia, and then considering it's a home market, you know it better, and then expanding from there to other countries and markets. How was that experience for you? And maybe if you can share a few learnings from that journey as well.
Yeah, sure. I think starting off at your home market is definitely easier because you kind of understand what's the customer preference, what's the main problem that is on the market. And back then, I think in Estonia, we only had a couple of food delivery players, and you kind of knew the value proposition that they had and what you will be bringing on the table. So in that sense, I completely agree that it was easier, although definitely not simple. When it comes to launching a new product, there is so many things that you need to make sure that are there, starting from complete basics such as like App Store visuals and App Store copy, but also going into more complex topics such as like what technical solutions can we have? Because when you launch a new product, there's quite often a limited set of technical things that you can have. And on the development side as well, there's a lot of questions as to what should we be doing right now and what can wait. And so when launching the first product, I think it's very complex to kind of figure out what can you compromise on, because as a marketeer, you always want to do everything with a bang and with like shebang and all that. And so essentially, I think that was one of the biggest learnings as well, to kind of understand what you can compromise on and what's not going to bring that much on the table.
But in terms of skill set, if you can maybe talk more about that as well, like what was the main skill set that you required for this role, or what was skills that you learned on the go while you were in this role?
Well, in my case, and now we're kind of jumping a bit to my background as well, but I consider myself to be, but I consider myself to be a full stack marketeer, which essentially means that I know everything that has to do with marketing, from writing social media copy to doing visuals to doing emails to running ads and all that. And I think that was the key skill set that you actually needed to do when launching a new product. I was one of the few people in the team when it comes to marketing. I mean, we had one person to do emails and pushes, and then there was me. And so essentially, like the responsibilities were divided in between emails and pushes, where I would go through copy and maybe some visuals, and everything else was specifically on just me. And so essentially, I think having the full set of skills when it comes to all marketing topics was super important. So I was feeling quite at ease when it comes to social media copy, when it comes to certain PR topics, when it comes to like what should we boost, what shouldn't we boost, what visuals to use, what campaigns to think of, and so on. And I think that was like extremely useful.
Right. And in terms of like, aside from the marketing skills, like were there any soft skills like apart from marketing that you had to learn on the go? Like, for example, I'm assuming at Bolt, since you also had to expand a team and expand to other markets, there were a lot of people involved, a lot of expectations, a lot of requests as well. And I feel like as marketers, we get like hundreds of requests on a daily basis, because every team considers their market to be, the most urgent and the most important. So how do you like handle those requests on in a role like yours?
I think for me, it was a hard skill to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, stakeholder management is quite easy for me. Like in regards to like talking to different people, figuring out what they need, how can I help? No problem there. But kind of filtering through all of the requests that you get at the end of the day, you would have like a gazillion things to do, and then you would be like sitting there all alone thinking like, oh my God, where do we start?
True. Oh God.
What has helped me a lot that I actually learned on the job, I don't even remember, somebody from my friends suggested it. It's the Eisenhower matrix, which essentially divides things in between whether it's urgent and whether it burns. Okay. So it's all about like, do you really need to do it right now and something's going to break, or it can wait?
Wow. That makes a lot of sense because I feel like I'm going to take that right after this call back to my daily job as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I do recommend Google it, check it out, read about it. But essentially, like it divides projects into 4 different squares.
Okay.
And certain squares you can delegate, certain squares can wait, and certain squares you can drop. And everything else that you cannot delegate, that cannot wait, and that you cannot drop, you have to do right now.
Wow. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And also, Liia, if we can talk more about the marketing skill set. And I do know that considering that you're positioning yourself as a full stack marketeer, you had to obviously start from somewhere, right? And that means, like, for example, whether it was your degree, whether it was other experiences before Bolt. So maybe we can go more into that. Like you can talk more about your educational background and your work experience before Bolt, and then how did you progress, getting ready for an experience like Bolt, and also like moving on further from there as well.
Yeah, sure. I think weirdly enough, all pieces fell into place for me, although only in hindsight. So while I was doing everything that I was doing, I was like, okay, so we tried this and then we tried that, and I want to learn this. But in hindsight, everything kind of falls into place. So I think maybe a piece of advice to everybody in the beginning of their 20s, like it's gonna be fine. It will be fine eventually.
I love that.
In my case, I actually went to university. I went to Caltech. To study business administration and marketing in bachelor's then. Right. And I went there straight from uni. I was considering 2 professions actually. I was looking at the legal side, so potentially be a lawyer because I do like arguments. But also on the other hand, but also on the other hand, I do like numbers. I like economy. I like understanding the bigger picture. And I did like marketing a lot. And so I figured that maybe a better fit for me would be to study something broad, such as business administration, with the focus on marketing, to kind of get the basics first and then see what I want to do specifically from there. Wow. And so I did 3 years of bachelor studies. I think after my first year, right away, I went to my first professional job, which was in branding. Okay. While studying in university, of course, I had to make ends meet somehow. So I was working at the restaurant at the same time. And was
that your first paycheck, like working at restaurant?
No. I've been working in restaurants and cafes ever since I was, I think, 15. Oh, so wow. I'm really good at making my coffee, which is great. But I think the hospitality side also helps you in so many different areas. That's First of all, etiquette, which is amazing. Secondly, like managing certain problems and different people, especially complex people, and in hospitality, and I mean, in restaurants especially, depending on a place, of course, you get very high egos and complex people, and you have to kind of deal and de-escalate the situations, which have helped me a lot as well further on in my professional career. But then again, it was also food, and if you look like further on in my career, it kind of like made sense then as well.
I love that. But in terms of marketing as well, Liia, like maybe if you can talk more about why marketing, considering it's very interesting that you talked about how you were also considering legal as a profession for yourself. You said you're talking to different stakeholders, there's always that sort of certain topics where you do need that argumentative, it's not really like confrontational, but instead comes of, like coming into a middle ground, basically. So how did you use that? And why marketing? Is it like something that you discovered as a passion of yours in the very beginning, or something that you tried and learned that, okay, this is what fits me best?
Well, when I was looking at different career paths, I was thinking about where I'm good at. And in my case, I'm definitely extroverted.
Right.
So you can, like, even if you think in terms of like legal and economics, in there you can cut off, I think, half professions. So definitely not accounting, definitely not paralegal work where you have to like dive through different documents and look for comma spaces and kind of like see where something is wrong with the specific document. So this was kind of a minus point for legal side, because the reality of legal life, I think, is so much different from what you see on series where you would have like, excuse me, judge, objection. I mean, the reality
of most of us became legal experts when people started watching the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case. Like everybody had an opinion. Oh God, I feel like nobody has been as invested in like, legal case as much as that from like before that. So yeah, it's really interesting how people sometimes, learn about different opinions, and like you said, TV series and also, things that you watch online and what you have in your feeds, they teach us a lot, right? And that's
I agree with you, but like the reality of legal life is actually so much different. My husband has a legal degree. He's done masters in legal, and I mean the stories he tells me are completely not objection, judge. I have a case. I have a breakthrough. It's nothing to do with that. So essentially, I'm actually quite happy that I didn't go into law. And then when I was looking at the like overall economics side, business side of things. I do love numbers, and I do like the analytical side of stuff, but I cannot do accounting. I cannot do deep finance because that's not fun for me. I'm an extroverted person. So there I started looking further on, and I was like, okay, what else can you do? And then when I started looking deeper, I was like, hey, but marketing is essentially everything that I would want to do. I like talking to people. I like doing creative stuff, but not too creative because I love numbers. And then I kind of fell into place. And
like
I was like, okay, hey, but let's figure it out.
Like a really solid balance, I would say.
Yeah. I think in my case, it was a perfect balance.
And I think it's so interesting that you mentioned that because, for example, right, like even when people are in marketing careers, there's a very big difference in some, where positions they do require you to be more creative than the rest, while some of the marketing roles require you to be a little more analytical and technical than, other creative roles. So it's always like a blend, even within the same umbrella of marketing. And I'm glad that you're talking about that because I feel like some, even as a freelancer and a freelancer as well, right? And
absolutely.
So how do you tackle those sort of projects? Because I feel like for me, for example, I've come across projects where people come to you, okay, you're the marketer, do some magic and make this work, but then it's not really how it works. So how do you come across and tackle these sort of challenges or requests?
Yeah, well, it's been a journey. So when I was in branding, I kind of realized that building brands is great. And it's a lot of fun, especially like you go through the analytical side, you make the brands beautiful, and then you figure out the personality, the direction, the colors, and all that. And then you give the branding project to the owner of the brand, whatever the company this is. And then you realize that the brand starts living a bit of a different life than you kind of expected it to.
Right.
And so I realized that, like, although branding is interesting, it's a small part of things. Further on, I went to communications. So I worked in a PR agency, which was a different side of things, right? It's like you build a brand starts living the life, but in communications, you end up kind of solving the problems that brand now has, which was fun, but also not exactly for me because I realized that I actually want to have a much broader field and I like to do a lot of stuff within that specific lifetime of a brand. And this is when I actually went to freelance. It was a very crazy and scary decision for me, but I did it. And then when it comes to freelance, exactly as you said, every once in a while you would have people who don't have the basics straight. I mean, they don't have proper branding guidelines. They don't have proper principles. They do have something. Sometimes it's a product. Sometimes it's an idea, whatever this is. And they come to you and then they're like, okay, but now you have to fix all of the problems that we have on the operational side. You should do this one viral post. And that's your only job. And you don't have budget for it. Just be creative and make us go viral. And then you usually just like sit there and think like, okay, so where do I start now? How do I start explaining this?
No, it's crazy. But I think if we can go more towards, because now we're talking about Web 2, Web 3, people are trying to experiment different domains. People are, still trying to figure out if there is a playbook, if it exists somewhere, how to be a marketer, which there is none. Every to each their own. And I would say, for me as well, like I've learned on the go, I've learned on the job. And I think for you, I would I would assume that it's pretty much been the same as well.
Yeah, I mean, I learned from everything from building websites
Yeah.
and doing like basics of code to writing copy and doing designs. I mean, yes, you learn on the go, and the more you learn, the smarter and like the smarter you become. Yes, but like the broader understanding of the field in general and the business in general you have as well.
That's true. But what advice would you have for people, let's say, starting off, whether they're studying marketing degrees or whether they're learning how to freelance in the world of marketing or trying to look for a marketing job? Like, what is your advice to them?
That's a good question. I think like intuitively just go nuts. Try everything, learn everything, and I mean, just get your hands on every project. And most of the projects will not be fun, they will not be sexy, they will be just something that you can do. And I think my honest suggestion and recommendation would be to just go nuts, try it all, solve different problems, learn all of the skills. Maybe you don't know how to design, start learning how to, start learning the basic principles, because like further on, the more you move on in your career, the more you learn, the better understanding of those specific pieces you will have. And so essentially, I think just go nuts, learn as much as you can, try as much as you can, but also like try to stick to your field. Because what I see quite often in young people is that like, oh, I tried marketing for a year, and then I went to something else for a year, and then I went to something else for a year. And once they turn, let's say 30, they're like, okay, but like, what do I start now? And so I think what has helped me the most is actually, I mean, I was lucky enough as well to kind of get the field that I like. I don't think many people are fortunate enough to kind of jump into the field that they like a lot. But I would do recommend trying to figure out like the field you like and stick to it for as long as you can. And I mean, within every field, even if it's, let's say, accounting, you would have different companies, different problems, different situations where you could learn different things.
Wow.
So my honest recommendation would be to stick to this one field, learn as many colors within that field as you can. And then I think it's going to be a lot of fun for you.
I love that. But now, since we're talking about your professional growth, Leah, I would really want to touch the topic of personal growth. So considering that you've had a really good journey, and like you said, fortunate enough to get the field that you were interested in, that you liked, and you've excelled at that career as well. So I just want to understand, like, how have your goals shifted, let's say from the beginning of your 20s to now, and how much of an impact has that entire phase had on your personal growth itself?
Well, I've always had something about 5-year goals.
Right.
Like I wouldn't call them 5-year goals, but
Yeah.
like something along the lines of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always known what would be my immediate bigger next steps coming up. And in my 20s, I was like, okay, yes, I want to finish my bachelor's. Yes, I want to do my master's. Yes, I want to have a professional career. Yes, I want to be somewhere along of marketing manager or head of marketing as the next step. And for me, it was like quite clear and simple. Like if you think, like even if you think about those steps in an abstract way, you're like, okay, so I'm here today. I want to be there in the next couple of years, next 5 years, whatever timeline you set. And then everything else kind of comes intuitively because like once you already know high level where you want to be in time, every other step kind of like either plays into your vision or it doesn't. And then intuitively it makes so much more sense for you to kind of go with the direction that kind of helps you grow there. And so I think that was super useful. And my goals, I wouldn't say they have shifted over time.
Okay.
I think I'm still quite career oriented. I do know what my next step would be, what would make me like professionally super excited as well. But high level, I still have my goals for the next 5 years and so on. I think the only difference is that now I'm not in a survivor mode anymore, because in the beginning of your 20s, you're like, okay, paycheck, I want to pay the rent, I want to travel, I want to do that. Then I think mid-20s, you kind of start getting there, but you still have your like own personal problems. You want to have, I don't know, a car or a home or whatever this is. And now I'm 29 and now I'm finally there where like I have a home, I have traveled, I can travel more. Then you finally are somewhere where you're like, oh, I made it. It's fine. So like the roof is no longer on fire, which is great. But now maybe it's a great time to kind of breathe out and kind of focus on the, I don't know, mindfulness side of things and enjoy whatever's around you. So I think that has been my biggest shift so far, although everything else has stayed relatively same in regards to goals, aspirations, and all that, I would say.
Amazing. And I really like that you talked about that, you know that you are career oriented and now you're moving towards like a more work-life balance. So if we can talk more about that part as well, like considering working in a startup environment like Bolt, I think I can relate to that as well because these environments are super fast-paced. It can take a toll on you every now and then, you know, considering how much responsibility you have on your shoulders. So it really, I think it comes down to you as a person, how you set those boundaries, right? Whether it's in terms of maybe pushing back on unnecessary requests or, you know, just taking time off for yourself. So how do you create that balance for yourself, considering it was also...
Well, I haven't been too good with that side of things.
Right.
Just like to drop it here, honestly.
No, that's good.
When
that you're sharing.
I mean, I've always been very oriented towards achieving a lot of stuff. That's why I've learned so many things in marketing, and that's why how I joined Bolt was the fact that I was having my own like freelance agency with all of the freelancers who were helping out me in the fields that I wasn't necessarily an expert in. So, for example, I would have area designers, programmers, and so on. And then at one point, I realized that like Estonian market is cool, but it's small. So I want to go and expand my horizons a bit further. And then I was sitting there and I was thinking, okay, I have two ways of doing it. One is that I actually start building my business outside of Estonia, going to Baltics and maybe further on from there, which would mean that I would need to do business. Whereas another option would be that I would go working for somebody who is already international and I would learn by doing a regular job. And so essentially that's what I did. I joined Bolt, knowing that I'm going to get the international scale and knowing that I'm willing to work super hard for it. And this is how it all happened. So I joined Bolt, the crazy ride has started. I mean, we started launching all of the markets. And then, well, COVID happened as well. Essentially, initially our plan was to launch, I think like one country or a couple of countries per quarter. And then we would be launching a country per week during COVID stage. So that was crazy. And I think like in those situations, you can like look at them objectively and think like whether it's a temporary situation or whether it's something that's going to be there for the whole time. And I mean, during pandemic, you understand that like the set of countries is obviously limited. I mean, you can grow to a certain extent, yes, but like once you hit a certain threshold, you won't be launching too many countries anymore. And so that side for me was like, okay, now we're launching countries essentially every week. I'm going crazy. There's so much to do, but I'm going to breathe out. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to kind of suffer through it because it was a crazy time, but also it was like super fun time as well because you were like, okay, so this week we have what? Poland, Czech Republic, Ukraine, let's see. And I mean, you can afford periods of unhealthy work-life balance because you know it's temporary and you know that this is a once-in-a-lifetime moment because objectively you would never have a situation like this ever again, likely at least. But after we did that crazy scale during COVID, I realized as well that like I wouldn't say I was burning out, but I could say that I was quite tired from like super long days, had so much on my shoulders, and there was just like too much happening at the same time. And then I started going to a psychologist, and I was like, hey, I see that something is not entirely correct. Help me fix it. And then we started going through all of the different areas of like how to set boundaries, how to start working more on like your work-life balance, especially when you work at home. I mean, your office is everywhere all the time. And I think that has helped me a lot. So I did at least 6 months of like weekly cycles. Also, Bolt was supporting it. So we would get free mental health consultations. And that was like super helpful. So essentially from there, I learned to kind of get the boundaries. I shut down Slack from my phone. I do have Slack on my phone, but I have access to Slack, not the constant amount of notifications and all that. And so I started limiting my personal space in regards to like, okay, I work from 9 to let's say worst case 6. Everything after 6, once I close my laptop, if something burns, they're going to call me. If it doesn't, it can wait until tomorrow.
I love that.
And this is definitely something that has helped me a lot, and that I'm now taking with wherever I'm going to go, in regards to just making sure that you have your own work time, you have your own personal time. Similarly, I started booking lunches during daytime, so I would have a lot of meetings. My average day would look like, let me think, I would have at least 20 hours of meetings per week. 20 hours. Like, some weeks were easier, some weeks were
Yeah,
harder,
no,
but you also need
I
to do
believe that
your,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, but that would be my average week. And so essentially, like, within all that, you need to book your lunches, because you would need to have this 1 hour of your space, whether you do Slack, emails, eat, go for a walk, whatever this is. But I think that has helped me a lot as well.
Wow.
On a personal side, I think that was super useful was my husband,
Mm-hmm.
who just sometimes demanded attention, and he's like, okay, enough, you need to go for a walk. Now we're going for a walk. I'm taking you on a walk. And I think,
oh my God, I love that.
yeah, I
No,
mean,
you need
once
that
you have,
support system, right? You just always,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Once you have a support system like this,
Yep.
it helps you kind of keep everything together. Over time, I also learned that doing sports helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't figured out yet how to properly schedule sports, because I hate schedules. I want to do it spontaneously.
Okay.
You finish your work day, then you're like, okay, today I feel like yoga, or today I feel like running.
Right.
But the reality of a work week is that you actually have to schedule stuff in.
True.
And so I'm working on that. But the high level, I would tell you that I think it boils down to having good support system, for you to be mentally very aware that, like, this is your work time, and your work time is now over, and now you're free, and now you're you, whatever you is it baking, is it running, is it something else, and kind of like keeping those boundaries very in place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've done with my team as well. Always, like, do not answer after hours. You can't wait until tomorrow. You schedule your messages up until for the next day.
Yep.
If you're on a vacation, don't work, because that's the scheduled time where you actually need to go down. You need to think about anything else. Like, when will we, I don't know, discover or like have colonies on Mars? I mean, you have to think about stuff like this for you to be able to perform properly at your job as well. So the harder the boundaries you have, I think the healthier it is.
Yes.
Although you would have certain times where there's more work to do, and you take a couple of extra hours, and it's fine, as long as you compensate with those hours by coming to work an hour later one day, or something else.
Oh my God. Okay. I feel like this was like, this was so good. Thank you so much for that, Leah. Like, I can relate to literally everything that you said. Hoping that people do take these nuggets of wisdom from you. Advice to people in general, like regardless of marketing, starting off their careers, not, just figuring out life in general. Should I be picking this career? Should I be picking that one? Should I be doing marketing, legal, economics? Should I be trying new things, let's say, once a year or once a month, and then try to see what fits me best? Or even considering, the times that we live in, people are getting laid off from their jobs as well. So what is your advice to people, let's say, who are looking to switch careers, looking for a job, starting off in general?
I think starting off is never easy, so don't expect it to be. That would be my first kind of advice. And I think we all kind of hope that when you start off a new thing, it's going to be like poof. So my advice is to kind of have the stamina, wait it through, stick to the specific direction, and learn there. I think it's going to be much easier if you do this basic pain of growth once, and then you start building on top of it, rather than doing the Tiger Woods swing and then the swimming movements and then learning the basics of triathlon and so on, because like every basic takes some time, and then once you get through it, it's easier. So I think that's definitely one piece of advice that I would give. Additionally, stick to or choose a direction that makes you happy, that's fun, that's exciting for you. Because for some people, accounting, like, I mean, I've met so many people who are like, oh my God, you can't imagine the stuff you can find within the balance sheets of a company, and they're enjoying it. So stick to or choose something that works for you. Whether you're extroverted, whether you're introverted, choose something that kind of makes you happy, makes you kind of excited, satisfied. Opening, like, you should be excited on Mondays. So you open your laptop and you're like, "Ooh, what's happening now?"
Yes.
So choose a direction that would make you happy over the course of long run, because the initial time is always a pain. So think about like a couple of years. If you stick to this specific direction, this specific field, will you be able to be super excited once you break through the pain of growth?
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Liia. We're under a minute, so I'm hoping this doesn't end like right off the bat, but I just want to thank you so much for, giving me your time. And I hope you make the most of the time that you have now after Bolt as well, moving on to your next mission, and can't wait to see what you do next. But thank you so much again for being a part of this and for sharing your journey.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, it's been super exciting to talk
Thank you
with
so
you.
much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day. Thanks. Bye.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye.